Hello everyone, welcome to Lecture 2, the historical development of critical thinking. In this lecture, we'll discuss how critical thinking ideas and skills have been developed and promoted throughout history, especially from a comparative perspective. Let's get started. In overview, we start with a comparison of the key ideas of great thinkers in the East and the West. Particularly, I would like to highlight the following four famous thinkers in ancient times. Among them, two from ancient China, Confucius or孔子in Chinese, and Sun Tzu. On the other hand, two from ancient Greece, Socrates and Aristotle. Confucius is well known for his moral and educational theory and practice, while Sun Tzu is very famous for his strategic ideas and art of war. On the other hand, Socrates is well remembered for his teaching methods and questioning skills, while Aristotle is widely referred to his formulation and application of formal logic. These four thinkers all played very important role in the development of culture and knowledge in history. In the end of this lecture, certain questions will be given for further discussion. By comparison, the four great thinkers all advanced their ideas on the importance of thinking skills and give very valuable and practical advice on how to develop and enhance thinking and reasoning. The most distinctive difference between Eastern and Western thinkers is that the thinkers in the East paid more attention to moral contents and principles, which guide every individual through their thinking habit and orientations. On the other hand, the thinkers in the West more focused on logical forms and rules, which make human thinking patterns and activities more effective and accurate. First, we are going to discuss Confucian ideas about thinking. Confucius was a sage and a very wise man. Although he was not well known when he was alive, Confucius is now the most remembered person from ancient China. Confucius was born in 551 BC in a period of Chinese history known as the Age of Warring States. It was a period that saw China divided into many small kingdoms. Here is a good example of Confucian emphasis on the importance of asking questions. Confucius said, "The man who asks a question is a fool for a minute. The man who does not ask is fool for life." Also, Confucius offered many valuable ideas about learning, reasoning, and thinking. In the Analects of Confucius, he pointed out, learning without reasoning leads to confusion. Thinking without learning is wasted effort. In the Book of Right, Confucius said, "Study intensively, inquire prudently, think carefully, distinguish clearly, and practice earnestly." We are going to view the following video reciting top 20 Confucian quotes to remember for the rest of our lives.
The man who asks a question is a fool for a minute. The man who does not ask is a fool for life. The man who says he can and the man who says he cannot are both correct. Your life is what your thoughts make it. The journey with 1,000 miles begins with one step. Choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life. You are what you think. All people are the same, only their habits differ. We have two lives, and the second begins when we realize we only have one. Do not do to others what you do not want done to yourself. Respect yourself, and others will respect you. If you make a mistake and do not correct it, this is called a mistake. Life is really simple, but we insist on making it complicated. Real knowledge is to know the extent of one's ignorance. Looking at small advantages prevents great affairs from being accomplished. Act with kindness, but do not expect gratitude. The man who moves a mountain begins by carrying away small stones. When it is obvious that goals cannot be reached, don't adjust the goals, adjust the action steps. The essence of knowledge is having it to use it. Anyone can find the switch after the lights are on.
So, in order to understand Sun Tzu's art of war, I like to recommend the book written jointly by Daniel Zeyahu and Sandra Daniel. The book is entitled How to Think Critically Using Sun Tzu's Art of War Stratagems. Here is the content outline of the book. Chapter 1. What has an ancient Chinese general anything to do with thinking critically? Chapter 2. Barriers that stifle your thinking and how you can overcome these. Chapter 3. Using critical thinking for situational analysis so that you know what you are getting into. Chapter 4. Using critical thinking to solve problems and find the right solution. Chapter 5. Using critical thinking to make better decisions. Chapter 6. Endgames. What now? So here's an example of Sun Tzu's quote. He said, "The commander stands for the virtues of wisdom, sincerity, benevolence, courage, and strictness. These 5 H's should be familiar to every general. He who knows them will be victorious. He who knows them not will fail." Actually, in Sun Tzu's Art of War, there are altogether 36 winning strategies that can be applied not only for fighting in a war, but also for daily life. The following 5 strategies of Sun Tzu's Art of War are as good examples. Number 1, inner knowledge. Number 2, high ground. Number 3, timing and time. Number 4, be efficient. Number 5, right use of deception. Now, we turn our focus to Socrates, who lived from 470 to 399 BC. Here is a famous quote of Socrates with emphasis on the importance of thinking. As Socrates said, "I cannot teach anybody anything. I can only make them thinking." How did Socrates make a person thinking? Here is his method, the so-called Socratic method, is simplified in the following 5 points. Number 1, ask a challenging, open-ended question. Number 2, build on the first question by asking why. Number 3, come up with ideas based on these questions. Number 4, integrate your ideas with continual questions. Number 5, repeat steps 2 to 4 to get closer to a better solution. So it's ideal that you ask these questions with a group of people to get different perspectives. We are also going to show a video on Socratic method step by step.
So a lot of the times we hear we should question authority, but how do we question authority? Well, Socrates gives us a method. He gives us a method called the Socratic method, which some people call the method of dialectic, and there's other names for it too. But this Socratic method is when people get together, or you can do it alone too, but people get together to discover truth, not just to debate, not just to defend their own opinions on issues, but to work together to discover truth. It's not rhetoric, it's not debate, it's something a little different. So let's get into this. The Socratic method is a way of thinking, actually, that involves 3 steps. First, you give a definition for a concept. The second step is you find exceptions to that definition and you present them in the form of a question. And then the third step is you give a better definition of that concept. And you just keep going through these 3 steps. Now, step 2 could lead to the following. You could give a perfect definition of the concept or, of your opinion or whatever, and that would end discussion. We now have knowledge. But in many cases, we'll end the discussion without fully understanding the concept. That is, we'll end in what Plato called aporia, in rational ignorance. But at least we'll know why we don't know. And we'll also have eliminated some insufficient definitions. So let's use a concrete example to illustrate this method. Let's say we ask a child what is a triangle. And here's step 1. The child says a triangle is a shape. So we have a definition, step 1. Now, in your mind, you might be thinking, well, this is not a sufficient definition for triangle because there's many shapes that are non-triangles, for example, circles and squares. And in other words, this definition of triangle includes too much. It does not exclude all non-triangles. So thinking of this, you ask the child the following question. Well, a circle is a shape. Is a circle a triangle? And now the child has to say, oh no, a triangle is not just a shape. It's a shape with 3 sides. So now we have a more refined definition. We can and we're back at step 1. And we keep going through this process until we get to the perfect definition of triangle. And notice how challenging this way of thinking is. I can recognize triangles, but it's really challenging to sufficiently define them to discover the essence of a triangle. But according to Socrates, I don't really understand, I don't really know until I can give such definitions. So the consequence is that we know very little. To better understand why we know so little, just try giving a definition for justice or goodness or truth or beauty or love or circle or something like a fish. If you ask me what is a fish, I'll give you a definition, but it won't be the perfect definition. It won't, on my first try at least, it won't exclude all non-fish and include only fish. So now, what I just said, many people will respond and say, but concepts like justice are simply opinions. So there's really no truth about them. So the Socratic method just can't get at truth about justice. However, I think the Socratic method is still valuable if that were the case, because it helps people discover their real opinions about justice. So, for example, imagine that I define justice as giving people what belongs to them. Now, a modern-day Socrates would then ask the following questions as exceptions. Would it be justice to give an axe murderer his axe back? Right? Or would it be justice to give your drunk friend his car keys? And most people I talk to, 99.9%, would say, well, no, that's not justice to me. So Socrates' questioning has helped us see that your opinion of justice is not your real opinion. And in fact, when you use the Socratic method, you'll find that what you think of justice and what I think of justice is actually very similar. Okay, in the end, there is common ground. But anyway, that's another point. So what Socrates can help me see here, though, is, I don't really think justice is what I thought it was. It's not giving people what belongs to them. So I now recognize my ignorance. Thanks a lot, Socrates. Right? So let's look at these exercises. And for each one, I have a definition. And what you want to do, playing the role of Socrates, is just ask a question that helps me get a better definition. That is, your question should bring up an exception that helps me get a better definition. So the first one is knowledge is belief. And here you could ask, well, is my belief in flying pink elephants knowledge? Is my belief that water is made of hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and corn, is that knowledge? And so that question that you just asked would help me see that knowledge isn't just belief. Rather, knowledge is belief that also happens to be true. So now I define knowledge as, okay, it's a true belief. So take a minute and see if you can think of a question that would bring up an exception to this definition of knowledge as true belief. This is number 2. And I think if you think for a while, you'll see that there is an exception. The exception might go something like this. What if I guess the right answer? That's all you have to ask. Because I might guess the winning lottery number, so I had a true belief, but it wasn't knowledge. Or what if I really believe X will happen, but I have no reasons for why I believe it? So, in other words, I could have true belief, but it's not knowledge because I don't have a justification for the true belief, an account, a reasoning. So again, now I refine my definition based on this Socratic method, and I say knowledge is justified true belief. And the cycle continues until we get to a perfect definition of knowledge. And even if we don't, we've made progress because we know that knowledge is not belief. It's not just belief. And knowledge is not just true belief. Right? Look at number 3. A fish is an animal that swims. Right? Let's say you're teaching young kids and they give you that definition. You can then ask, well, is a turtle or a snake a fish? Is a dog a fish? Because, turtles, snakes, and dogs swim. Such a question will force the student to come up with a better answer, a better definition of fish. And again, according to Plato, I don't know what a fish is if I can't give you a definition in which this definition excludes all non-fish and includes all fish. I could point to you, that's a goldfish, that's a catfish, but I don't really understand. That's just recognition. Real knowledge comes about when you can discover the essence of fish, the essence of knowledge, the essence of triangles. Look at number 4. Justice is saving the maximum number of lives. See if you can think of an exception and then ask it in the form of a question in order to engage in the Socratic method. And I think here's a possible answer. Would it be justice to steal the organs of a healthy person to save 5 sick people? And I think most of you would say no. So in your opinion, justice is not just about saving the maximum number of lives. A student also gave the following example. Would it be justice to save 20 serial killers on death row instead of 19 orphans, right? So such questions will help us go deeper into our opinions about justice and see that it's not just about saving the maximum number of lives. The 5th one says a circle. So the 5th one says a circle is an enclosed shape, and a good question to ask is, well, is a circle a square? Since a square is an enclosed shape, and that should lead us to a more precise definition of circle. The 6th one, you can see, says games are things people play. Well, is a violin a game? Okay, that's one question to ask, but also it brings up an important objection to this whole approach brought up by Wittgenstein in the 20th century, Wittgenstein's family resemblance. I won't address that here. The 7th one is love is affection towards people that please you. Okay, so think about that definition and see if you can see an exception, and then ask a question like this. Can you love a child with whom you are displeased? Okay, I think you can. So you want to refine your definition. Or let's say that you say love is a feeling of attraction. Okay, I can then ask, or Socrates could ask, is it love if I give you $100 if I give $100 to charity even though I don't feel like it? That is, I do it from a sense of duty instead of some feeling. So maybe love isn't just a feeling, or maybe there's different types of love. So the Socratic method will help us clarify our thoughts, right, on all of these issues. And again, it's really rigorous. It's really hard. I mean, if you ask me to define a fish or a phone, I'm not going to be able to do this right away. I need to go through the Socratic method with you to be able to do it. Now, there are some things that I have thought a lot about, like knowledge and so on, where I can give you a very good definition, but I'm limited. I haven't thought about everything, so I can't do it for all. So what's the application and value here? The Socratic method reminds us that good ideas take work and they're based on rigorous thinking. Testing your ideas with this Socratic method will give you more confidence in your ideas and your opinions about justice and goodness, as well as your ideas about triangles and so on. And it will increase the probability that your ideas are true because you're testing them. And this applies to opinions, too. Opinions about justice or whether we should go to war or not. Because, opinions are either reasoned or they're just mere arbitrary opinions. And one way to make sure your opinions are reasoned is to apply the Socratic method test to them. There's a great video on YouTube called Socrates and Self-Confidence where they compare this Socratic method, which they put in 5 steps instead of 3, but they compare it to pottery making. So your opinions are like pots. They either hold water or they don't. If they go through the proper process when they're created, they'll hold water. And if they don't, then they don't. So some of your opinions are basically crappy. Okay, but the Socratic method can help you refine your opinions and make them stronger. Also, keep in mind the application and value of this is that a lot of progressive teaching methods emphasize the Socratic method. So the idea is to get the student working, not the teacher, basically. So, for example, instead of coming in and dumping information in your head and telling you that a triangle is a shape with interior angles adding up to 180 degrees, I can just ask you what the definition of a triangle is. And if you say a shape, then I just ask questions to help you discover for yourself what a triangle is. And that's the emphasis, to help students discover for themselves through Socratic method, through Socratic thinking, through question asking, to help them discover for themselves, to construct their own knowledge of justice and triangles and so on. So very effective teaching method. And of course, there's many dialogues where Socrates engages in it. But in short, the Socratic method will take you from inside the cave, where you recognize triangles and some just acts. It'll take you outside to the sunlit world, where you discover the essence of triangles and the essence of justice.
Okay, finally, we discuss about Aristotle's logic. Aristotle lived from 384 to 322 BC. Here is a quote of Aristotle on the importance of education. Aristotle said, "The educated differ from the uneducated as much as the living differ from the dead." Aristotle developed a framework of formal logic. The very basic form of Aristotle's logic is so-called syllogism, which began with 2 premises and 1 conclusion. The first is a major premise. The second is a minor premise. The third is conclusion, as derived from the 2 premises. For example, the first major premise: all men are mortals. Then the second minor premise: Socrates as a man. Then to reach a conclusion based on the 2 premises: Socrates is a motto. So in the later parts of our course, we will discuss more about formal logic in relation to informal logic and how critical thinking can apply logic skills to making sound arguments and solving problems. To conclude this lecture, the following questions are given for further discussion. Question 1. To compare Confucius, Sun Tzu, Socrates, and Aristotle, who is your favorite thinker? Why? Question 2. How have the great thinkers in the past influenced your way of thinking and your view of life? We finish off here. See you in the next lecture.